Hi! In this tutorial I would like to continue with the topic of graphs. In the previous tutorial we talked about histograms and boxplots. Now I would like to mention more types of graphs and tell you how you can edit those graphs in SPSS. One type of graphs that represents usual way to display means is a bar chart. How you create this graph in SPSS depends on how you collected your data, whether you have independent samples or the same samples. Our starting point is always Graphs up here in the menu bar, and then we click on Chart Builder. We click OK here, and we will choose bar. Let's put the simple bar here for now, and let's talk about types of bar graphs down here. First of all, we have a simple bar. You can use it when you just want to see the means of scores across different groups of cases. Then you can use clustered bar. If we have a second grouping variable, we can produce a simple bar chart, but with bars in different colors for levels of a second grouping variable. Then you have stacked bar. This is the same as the clustered bar, except that the different colored bars are stacked on top of each other rather than placed side by side. Then we have simple 3D bar. This is also the same as the clustered bar, except that the second grouping variable is displayed not by different colored bars, but by an additional axis. And the last one I want to mention is a simple error bar, which is the same as the simple bar chart, except that instead of bars, the mean is represented by a dot, and the line represents the precision of the estimate of the mean. As you can see, we will again use our small data set with height of 10 people. You can see it here in the background. Now I edit one more variable, age, in this document, but I will come back to this later when we will need it. Now we will produce a simple bar chart with error bars showing means of heights of males and females. Therefore, we will click on the simple bar. If you don't have it there, just do a double click and move height variable on y-axis, and we will move gender variable on x-axis. But before we will do this, I would like to change the variable names so that we can see them in a better way. So you just do a right click and display variable names. Okay, so now we move height on the y-axis and gender on x-axis. Perfect. Also, when you select the type of graph you want, the element properties dialog box should appear on the right side. If not, you can just click on element properties here. There are two important features of this dialog box. The first one is that by default the bars will display the mean value. You can see the statistic mean. This is fine, but just note that you can plot other summary statistics such as the median, mode, or any other. Secondly, you can ask SPSS to add error bars to your bar chart. It's here. And you have a choice of what your error bars will represent. Normally, error bars show the 95% confidence interval, so the boundaries and true values where the true mean of the population will fall with 95% probability. You can change the width of the confidence interval displayed to a different value. So we will choose display error bars, and we will keep the confidence interval 95 here. It's important that when you change these properties, you click on Apply down here. If you don't do that, the changes will not be applied to Chart Builder. So, Apply. Now we click on OK to produce the graph. Let's wait for the output. Okay, we can see the graph now, and from the graph we can conclude that on average males are taller than females, and also looking at the error bars we can see the 95% confidence interval. So where the values will fall with 95% of probability, where the true mean value will fall. Okay, let's go back to producing graphs now. We go to Graphs, Chart Builder, we click OK. Another type of the graph I would like to mention shortly is line chart. Line charts are bar charts, but with lines instead of bars. Therefore, everything we have just done with a bar chart we can display as a line chart instead. So I will not go into details here. We will now move on to scatter plot, but before that I want to show you our new variable because we will use it now. So let's close this for now. And here you can see I added a variable age. So we need two continuous variables for this example, so we will use height and age. Let's go to Graphs and Chart Builder again. Let's click on OK and we will talk about scatter plot. So let's put it here. Sometimes we need to look at the relationship between two continuous variables rather than their means or frequencies. A scatter plot is a graph that plots each person's score on one variable against their score on another. It tells us whether there seems to be a relationship between the variables, what kind of relationship it is, and whether any cases are markedly different from the others. To demonstrate the graph, we will use again the data I just told you about. And we now have 8 icons, 8 options of scatter plots. Let's go through them to choose the correct one. First of all, simple scatter, which you can use when you want to plot values of one continuous variable against another. Then grouped scatter, this is like a simple scatter plot, except that you can display points belonging to different groups in different colors or symbols. Simple 3D scatter, we use it to plot values of one continuous variable against values of two others. Then we have summary point plot. This graph is the same as a bar chart, except that a dot is used instead of a bar. Simple dot plot, or otherwise known as a density plot, is similar to a histogram, except that rather than having a summary bar representing the frequency of scores, a density plot shows each individual score as a dot. This can be useful for looking at the shape of a distribution. Last that I want to mention is a scatter plot matrix, which produces a grid of scatter plots showing the relationships between multiple pairs of variables. We will click on a simple scatter plot and we will put the age variable on the x-axis and height on the y-axis. Perfect. And now we can just click on OK to create the graph. Let's wait for it. Often when you plot a scatter plot, it is useful to plot a line that summarizes the relationship between variables. This is called a regression line. All graphs in SPSS can be edited by double-clicking on them in the SPSS viewer. To open them in the SPSS chart editor, which you can see here right now. I will give you more details on editing graphs in a second, but for now just click on this button, Add Fit Line at Total, in the chart editor to open the Properties box. Using this dialog box we can add a line to the graph that represents the overall mean of all data, a linear straight line model, a quadratic model or a cubic model, and so on. But now we want to look at the linear regression line, so we keep this here. If we wanted to change it, we would have to click on Apply. Now we can only click on Close, and you can see the regression line in the graph already. You can close this. The regression line remains here, and this line suggests that the older a person is, the taller he or she is. But we cannot, of course, make any serious conclusions now because we have only a very small sample, so just take this as an example only. Okay, now I would like to tell you a bit more about editing graphs. I have just shown you how to add regression lines to scatterplot, but you can actually edit almost every aspect of your graph. As I said, you can always do it by double-clicking on the graph. This is the way how you get to chart builder or chart editor, sorry. And once in the chart editor, you can click on virtually anything that you want to change and change it. You have many options here. There are many buttons that you can click on to, for example, show data labels, or here we have many different and interesting options. For example, you can insert the title, insert the text box, and so on. You can also change the bar colors, the axis titles, the scale of each axis. There are really many options. However, I would not recommend overusing these tools because usually simple is the best. You can try to play around with these features to get more familiar with them because this will be pretty useful. And yeah, this is all about graphs. Hopefully you now know how to create graphs in SPSS, and I thank you for watching the tutorial.